Hello all, welcome to my YouTube channel. In today's video, we are going to discuss about Azure SQL Managed Instance. So this is the another options which we have in Azure to use SQL database. So let's start. What is Azure SQL Managed Instance? So Azure SQL Managed Instance is the intelligent, scalable cloud database service that combines the broadest SQL Server database engine compatibility with all the benefits of fully managed and evergreen platform as a service. So it's a completely platform as a service. You don't need to maintain any kind of hardware related things. And SQL Managed Instance allow existing SQL Server customer to lift and shift their on-premise application to the cloud with minimal application and database changes. So with minimal changes in your application code base and your DB changes, you can easily migrate your on-premise database server to the cloud, and you will enhance the security as part of your application and DB perspective. SQL Managed Instance has near 100% compatibility with the latest SQL Server what Enterprise Edition database engine. So they will provide 100% compatibility whatever the latest they have, like they have SQL Server 2022 latest. So with the Enterprise Edition, they will provide 100% compatibility, providing a native virtual network implementation that address common security concerns as a business model favorable for existing SQL Server customers. So if you are going to use Azure SQL Managed Instance, then you have to create your own virtual network. For example, you can use your VPN if you are if you have a hybrid model and you want to connect to the Azure SQL Managed Instance, then you have to use some kind of VPN, Express Route, or virtual network peering or VNet. So those things basically you have to keep in mind for the security concern. So you have to create your own virtual network to use this particular service. So it will be like basically when you use this service, this instance will be installed in a separate subnet, and you cannot install anything on that subnet. If you have to access the SQL management, you have to use any kind of VNet, VPN, or Express Route, any peering, any other services you have to use to connect to this SQL Managed Instance. At the same time, SQL Managed Instance preserved all the platform as a service capabilities like automatic patching, version update, automatic backup, high availability that drastically reduce management overhead. So like as an administrator, you don't need to focus about all these things like automatic patching, version update, automatic backup. So you can focus on your much more in part of the how performance and all. So those things basically you can focus instead of focusing on this backup, patching, all those things you can avoid. So purchasing model. So if you remember, we have in Azure SQL database, we have two purchasing model, like one vCore based and DTO based. So here we don't have a concept of DTO based purchasing model. So here we only have vCore based purchasing model. And when we talk about cost, yeah, it's compared to other options, this is the costly one, but it will provide the more securities. So the vCore based purchasing model for SQL Managed Instance give you flexibility, control, transparency, and a straightforward way to translate on-premise workload requirement to the cloud. This model allow you to change compute, memory, and storage based upon your workload needs. So like suppose initially you have created with 4 GB RAM and around like whatever minimum we will see in demos, for example 32 GB, and you have created the instance. What in going forward you need another requirement like no, now I need at least 16 GB RAM and 200 GB storage. That time you can easily increase those configurations based on your requirement or based on your workload. The vCore model is also eligible for up to 50% saving with the Azure hybrid benefit for SQL servers. So if you have on like SQL license, you can apply those license in managed instance and you can save the cost or approx 50%. In the vCore model, you can choose hardware configuration as follows. So there are three series, basically standard, premium, and premium series memory optimized. So these are the three options you will get in vCore model in terms of hardware configuration. Next, service tier. So SQL managed instance is available only in two service tiers, the general purpose and the business critical. So the general purpose designed for application with typical performance and IO latency requirement, input and output latency requirements. And business critical designed for application with low IO latency requirement and minimal impact of underlying maintenance operation on the workloads. So basically you will get two service tier model. You have to choose like either general purpose and business critical. And again, if you are using a general purpose, maybe it will cost you little less. If you're using business critical, that means it will cost you more. Based on requirement, based on workload of your application, you have to choose this service tier. Both service tier guarantee 99.99% availability and enable you to independently select storage size and compute capacity. So these things, like basically availability, you will get 99.9% both the service tier. Either you choose general purpose or business critical. Okay. So next we come to feature. So Azure SQL Managed Instance feature. So first, as we discussed, is a easy lift and shift, like with minimal code changes or DB changes, you can easily migrate your database from on-premise to cloud. Fully managed platform service, so you don't need to think about backup, patches. All these things will be managed by Azure itself. So it's a fully managed platform service, full isolation and security. So you have to create your native VNet implementation with private IP address. Like you can create your virtual network peering from, if you are running on hybrid model, then you create your own VNet and you can use this service. So in terms of security, it will be very useful. So these are the main three features I have chosen here. So this slide basically I have taken from Microsoft document page itself. Next, move to Azure SQL Managed Instance benefits. So what all the benefits you will get if you're using this managed instance service. So database administrator can focus time on more unique aspect of the system and better serves that needs of end user. So it means like if the DB administrator will not focus on backup patching, then at least they can utilize those time to the other aspects which end user needs. Nearly 100% compatibility with SQL Server Enterprise Edition. So it's compatible with SQL Server Edition. SQL Server login and Active Directory authentication are both supported, so which minimize end user disruption. So as per your requirement, you can use SQL Server authentication or AD authentication. So it supports basically both the authentication mechanisms. Platform as a service, same 99.9% uptime service level agreement as Azure Virtual Machines. So like whatever the Azure Virtual Machine have this agreement, service level agreement, same you will get over here also. Because in backend, when you create Azure SQL Managed Instance, so in backend basically you are creating a multiple virtual machines, because it's create several components. It's run on this managed instance, basically create multiple several components which run on isolated VMs. Some existing database application code may require modification before migrating. So there are minimal changes which you have to do when you are planning to migrate, but it will not like more complex or something. There are few important points when you are using this managed instance. So backups from a managed instance can only be restored to the other managed instance or to a SQL Server 2022. They cannot be restored to other version of SQL Server or to the Azure SQL database. So this point we have to keep in mind when we are going to use this particular managed instance. And more importantly, when we are migrating, we need to keep in mind like which version we are going to migrate TDB. So those things we have to keep in mind. Place multiple managed instance in same subnet wherever that is allowed by the security requirement, as that will bring you additional benefits. So like if your security or compliance allow you to put multiple managed instance in the same subnet, so that will reduce or bring additional benefits as well for you. Co-locating instance in the same subnet will significantly simplify networking infrastructure maintenance and reduce instance provisioning time, since a long provision duration is associated with the cost of deploying the first managed instance in a subnet. So when you deploy the Azure managed instance, SQL managed instance. So the duration time, basically the deployment time, it will take approximately 6 hours or more. So those provisioning time will also cost you. So if you suppose, for example, if you are creating this managed instance in multiple subnets, so you are using multiple 6 hours of for each subnets, and it will cost you also for that particular provisioning duration. So it's better if if your company is allowful as per your security or compliance, you can create multiple managed instance in a same subnet, then it will be useful for you. So Azure SQL Managed Instance demo. So in demo, basically what we are going to do, we are creating a Azure SQL Managed Instance in the one subnet, because this particular managed instance will be in a single subnet and we cannot create any other resources as part of this subnets. And similarly, we will add new subnet in this virtual network itself, where we will where we will basically provision new virtual machines in the new subnet, but it will be part of the same virtual network, and we will install SQL Management Studio over here, so we can easily connect from this SQL Managed Instance from this virtual machine. So that's what we are going to do in demo. So let's start the demo. So I'm in my Azure portal. So first thing, we need to create a SQL Managed Instance. So we'll hit on create new managed instance. So I will choose my existing resource group. I'll create a new resource group called demo. Managed instance name. So this name should be unique. So I'll give demo. Okay, it's taken. Region, I'll choose my nearby region, which is Central India. Now compute and storage. So this, for this demo, I'll choose as minimum as I can. So there are some, if you see, the minimum virtual core, it's a 4 and maximum is 80. And in terms of storage, minimum we have 250 C, 32 GB, and maximum we can create around 8192 GB. So similarly, if you can see this cost summary chart, it will cost you accordingly this particular configuration. So I'm going to choose 4 V-core CPU. So it cost, and in terms of GB, I'll choose minimum, which is 32 GB. So it's cost you every month 38,397 rupees. Now SQL Server license. If you have existing SQL Server license, you can apply that license. So you can save 55% of license cost. SQL Server license, pay as you go, Azure hybrid. So I'm leaving is hybrid benefit only. In terms of backup, I'll choose local redundant backup storage and apply. So next part is authentication. So I'll use SQL Server authentication. So I'll provide here name. In terms of password, so this password, if I'll put simple password, it will not talk, because the password must be 16 characters in length and it must follow all this requirement. Next we'll come to networking. So because this managed instance will be in backend, it run on any of the virtual machine, and when we create a virtual machine, we need a VNet, virtual network. So for that, basically it's going to create a VNet in background, because this managed instance will run on any of the virtual machine, but we cannot see that particular virtual machine where it will host. Connection type, I'll keep it default. So basically there are two connection type, proxy and redirect. So if I'll open this uh, learn more tab, so here you can see, So we have to redirect is recommended and proxy is default. So here basically in this mode all connection are using a proxy gateway component. To enable connectivity only port 1433 for private network and 3342 for public connection that need to be open. But if you are using redirect, so here basically network security group will allow access on this particular 1433 and these ports we have to also open. So I'm going with default one, proxy default. So it will enable only 1433 port if we are using private. Public endpoint, so I'll enable it. Allow access from internet. Minimum TLS version I'll choose default 1.2, which is fine. In terms of security, so if you want to enable Microsoft Defender, you can enable, but it will again cost you for this particular service. I'm not going to enable it. Identity, I'm leaving everything is default. Next, additional settings. So here you can choose collision level, time zone. So I'll choose my time zone here. Okay. Your application, no, I don't want. Maintenance window, you can system default is 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Next, will tag and review. So you can say estimated cost per month is 38,397 rupees. And you can see this deploying managed instance is a long running operation taking up to 6 hours to complete. So what I will do, I'll hit on create and I'll create this particular managed instance and we'll come back after 6 hours. So you can see initializing deployment. So we'll come back after 6 hours and then we will continue forward. So now my deployment is got completed. We'll go to resources. And here this is the host name basically which we will use to connect this particular managed instance. So now what we need to do, we need to create a virtual machine and we will install a SQL management studio on that machine, and from there basically we will try to access this particular managed instance. So I'll go to virtual machine, create new virtual machine. I'll choose my existing resource group name. I'll put demo VM. Region, it will be my central India region. Availability, I'll choose no infrastructure redundancy required. Image, I'll choose Windows Server 2022 data center edition. And size, I'll choose little. Okay. Now I'll give username and password. So this is the same process like we create a VM. I'll enable RDP port because we need to access this virtual machine. Next, go to disk. So I'll leave it everything default. In networking, now we already have VNet which we have created as part of the SQL managed instance creation. So now I need to add if I'll go to subnet, you can see I can see this particular subnet which is using by managed instance, but we cannot use. So now we need to create a new subnet under this virtual network. So I'll go to here, manage subnet configuration, and I'll add it here near. So I'll put name demo subnet and I'll apply. So now we have two subnets. So again I'll go back to my this wizard. Now it will came up demo subnet which we have created just now. So we'll use this particular subnet and it will also create a new public IP address. So rest all the things I'm leaving default. So now we will wait a couple of minutes to create this particular virtual machine. So now VM deployment is completed. So now we will log into this particular virtual machine. So why I have created this particular virtual machine? Because I don't have any local VNet, like any VNet configuration from my local machine, so I can access this particular managed instance. For that, basically, you have to create a VNet pairing if you have to connect from my local system to this particular managed instance. So that's the reason we have created this virtual machine as part of that virtual network, so we can access this managed instance. So now here basically we need to download the SQL Management Studio, and from there we will try to connect uh, this managed instance. So now we will download the Management Studio. So this installation will take couple of minutes. So we'll wait. Now SQL Server Management Studio is installed on this machine. So now I will take the host name of my managed instance. So I'll go back to resources, SQL Managed Instance, and I'll take the host name from here. I'll go back to my VM. Authentication we have set up SQL Server authentication, so we'll use same here, demo. So now we have connected from the managed instance. If you see databases, we don't have any databases here. Now I'll go back to my portal. So here if you can see compute and storage. So from here, if you want, we can increase the configuration, like number of cores, storage we can increase from here. And if you and another thing, connection settings. So these are the like language specific, like ADO.NET, JDBC, ODBC, PHP. So these details basically we will provide to our developers, so they can use on their code to connect to this particular managed instance. So now we'll go to databases. So we don't have any databases, so I'll try to create new database. Database name I'll put DemoDB. Manage instance Central India. Next, data source. So I'll choose none, and I'll leave everything default. We'll try to create database and we'll see. So this deployment got failed. Just give me a moment, let me check. So the database creation is getting failed because if you see here, the status still it's in creating stage. So in the backend itself, it's creating a few of the components. So that's what we are not able to create the database now. So when the status will be instead of creating it will be done, then we will try to create a database. So that's how basically we create a managed instance, and we'll try to connect in from the virtual network. So like in this example, basically what we did, we create a VM as part of that virtual network where we have created a managed instance, and we are able to connect to the databases. So let me try to create from here. Basically it will not allow because we don't have like the status is still in creating phase, so it will not allow me. I'm just trying it if it work or not. So from management studio, I'm able to create the database demo. So now we will see if this particular database which we have created here, it is reflecting to the Azure portal or not. So I'll go to my Azure portal and I'll go to databases. So now we can see this database is created. So that's how basically we create a managed instance, and we'll use the managed instance securely. So thank you so much. See you in next video.